Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session of Courageous Leadership Academy Live. If you're new to the channel, my name is Dr. Kelly Waltman, and on this channel, we talk about all things leadership, from communication to sales and purpose. You name it, we talk about it, just to help us all be more courageous leaders. And today's topic is perfect for Courageous Leadership Academy Live. We'll talk about that in just a second here. Our guest today, Rowena Van Gelder, is an executive leadership coach and the founder of The Leader's Story. For 17 plus years, she has coached global women to lead with greater influence and impact. She's also helping us all overcome our fear of trying new technology and has launched a crash course, or is getting ready to launch a crash course on leveraging Clubhouse. Born in Sydney, Australia, and now based in Atlanta, Georgia, with her husband and two adorable little boys. Our topic today, Rowena, is going to help us all learn how to embrace fear and make it our friend and really and harness that. So again, like I said, perfect topic for Courageous Leadership Academy Live. And without further ado, let's bring our wonderful guest into the studio. Hello.
Hey, Kelly. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you here.
Oh, yeah, love it. I love talking about this topic. And so I appreciate you putting the platform on because, courageous leadership is something that we all need today, especially in a time like this. So Thanks for the space.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like to share in terms of an intro? Anything else you'd like to share about your work and what you do?
No, I think you got it covered. I think you've got it all covered. Let's just get into like the feelings. Let's get into the fear, because I know that people don't love talking about this topic. For me, I love it. I love it because it is empowering. And sometimes I talk about fear, and I know it feels icky at times, and that's perfectly normal and perfectly okay. But for me, I feel like once we normalize it and get into it, and once you start realizing the techniques there that are, once we collaborate with it, it really is empowering. So I'm all yours.
Wonderful. Yeah. And I love, as you were talking about that just then, it reminds me so much of, I talk a lot about feedback and people being afraid of feedback. And once we normalize it, then it helps take that fear away. And so I love it. Just really made me think of that. And I love how that resonates. So I'd like to start out these conversations by kind of really starting at the very beginning and the very basic. So what does it mean to embrace fear? Let's start there. What does that even mean?
Yeah. So for me, and everyone's got different definitions, and that's fine. How I think about fear, it's an emotion. It's simply an emotion. It's a data point. It's not a directive. And so when you think of it as a data point, no different to numbers and no different to budgets on a spreadsheet, fear is simply emotion, and emotion is simply a data point. Now, a data point is also happy and joy and all these other feel-good feelings. So fear is no different. It's just a data point. And so if you think about fear as a data point and not a directive, it really just takes it away. It creates, a sense of boundary. And it just takes the motion out of it, right? So fear equals data point. The other part, you said, how do we embrace? That's another key word, right? What does it mean to embrace fear? And so normally people go, oh, fear, oh, it doesn't feel good. I'm going to sleep on the carpet, and that's fine. I do that for many years, right? But when you say the word embrace, it made me really think, what does embrace mean? And if you think about the word embrace, it really means the willingness to bring it in, to own it, to enthusiastically lean in, get curious about it. So all we're saying is, hey, let's reflect in, let's reflect deeply, let's understand what this data point is telling us. And so let's not run away from it. That's our natural response is, yuck, I don't like it, I'm going to run. So what we're saying is, let's turn back. We're going to bring it in. We're going to be pretty good friends with it, because fear is actually good for us. It's a protector. It's doing its job. And when you start to realize that and see it as a good guy or a good girl, right, it's really there to help us. And so I don't want any of us to be afraid of it. It's simply a data point.
That's such a powerful way. I love the language you're using in there. It's such a powerful way to think about it, that it's a data point, not a directive. I mean, that's gold right there. And that's so powerful. And then when you said about enthusiastically leaning into it, that, I mean, just the imagery of that, and that is such a powerful way to think about, because you're right. When we think of fear, we equate that with, I need to run away. I need to
Right.
run, distance, sweep it away, whatever, but we think of distance. And so when you're saying, yeah, with embracing our fear, we're enthusiastically leaning in and we're getting curious.
Right.
That's powerful. That's
That
really
is powerful,
yeah.
because fear is your friend, right? Fear, and I'll do a whole keynote about this. But anyway, but the title of the keynote is "Make Fear Your Friend." It's something to be scared of. He, she, doesn't matter, is your friend, right? And when you look at fear as a friend, it takes away that sting, right? It takes away that being afraid of it. And so we'll get into the techniques of how to do that. But that's the first point: is embrace it. It's a friend. It's no different to your best friend. They just, fear is just, worried for you, and it's got good reasons to be. They're protecting you from something. And so when we get curious and start asking, fear, what you're protecting me from, then we're having a conversation with it. And so I say fear as a person because one of the things that we'll talk about is really personifying fear. And that's how we're going to start collaborating with it. But I'll leave it at that for now. But I love this topic.
This is fascinating for me, because this is not, while I have read a ton of things about, taking risks and not fearing failure and all the truly the topic of fear is not something that I've really delved into a whole lot, outside of, again, some of those kind of packaged ways that we maybe talk about risk taking and fear, but really delving in and thinking about conceptually what fear is and how to lean into it. But like, that's not something I've really explored before. So this is just so fascinating to me. I absolutely love this. This is really cool. So, why is it so, I guess, important for us or beneficial for us? Like, why should we go ahead and embrace fear? Like, why should we get curious and not just sweep it away and get distanced?
Yeah. How does it help us? Right. So fear is great. Think of it this way. Fear is a protector. It's doing its job, the fight, flight mode. Like, we all know that, right? So if you think about fear, it is a protector. It's keeping us safe and it's doing its job. With that said, when it becomes overprotective, and think about, I'm a parent as well, so think about that mother that like does everything for the kid, right? Like that's an analogy I'm going to use, because we're helicopter parents, make sure that we don't let them do this, they can't fall. But when fear for you becomes overprotective, like that overprotective parent, it keeps them small. It keeps someone from learning, from doing things, from learning themselves. And that's the same with us, right? So fear's doing a great job for us. It keeps us safe. Yes, absolutely. But when it starts doing a really, 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 really good job, it starts overprotecting, it's not allowing us to do those bigger things that we want it to do.
Right.
And so, I'm a big proponent of Montessori. It's like a 5-year-old, he's nearly turning 6, so a 5-year-old and 2-year-old, right? And I love how they teach in Montessori. It's all about the independent child. And so basically what they're saying is, don't do things for the child, because that is how they learn. So, for example, at the age of 2, they're holding glass cups, not the sippy cups, real glass cups, right?
Right.
And I had Montessori's teachers, because I was going to save the kid, he's not going to drop that. I don't want to deal with the mopping, all that stuff. And when I went to Montessori school, this is in Sydney, and the Montessori's teachers were like, they had us against the wall. They had the kids making pasta, breaking eggs, and doing all that. It was messy. It was super messy. They had them doing. Oh my gosh! I mean, it triggers me. They had cups, glass cups, and all that stuff. And we, the parents, were like, all of us were just like, let me go help the kid. Let me go help them.
Right.
And the teachers were like, no, stand back. It's okay if they break that glass. It's okay. They need to learn the weight of the glass. They need to drop it. If they do drop it, they're going to be supervised, but we are going to help them mop it up. And it was a long process. Like, it was like a whole 1 hour process, and it was painful to watch. I won't lie. But it just taught them independence. It taught the child confidence that I can do this. And mistakes are okay. And, the teachers were phenomenal. And that was, one of my biggest lessons for me was, wow, like, the teacher didn't get mad. They didn't get angry. They didn't scold them for dropping it. They just simply said, oh, okay, whoops, we dropped that. So what do you have to do now? Let's go get the mop. Okay, now we'll clean up. And they taught them the process. And it was back to what you're saying, risk-taking, right? It's okay to take that risk. And it's okay to drop it.
Right.
And it's fine. That's how you learn. And I'd bring that back to the adult conversation. And when you're saying, well, why should we, collaborate with fear? And it starts at that age to say it's okay to, when we get to this age, to be like, hey, we can take a risk. It's okay for us to make a mistake. What do we learn from it? It's perfectly okay. And psychological safety in the workplace. Amy Edmondson's work, I love that. The Fearless Organization, right? Like, that is all about saying, hey, we can take a risk. It's okay. It's normal. Fear is courage walking. We can do this. So I think I diverted from your question. Sorry, but
no, that was great.
Once you get me going, like, it's like stories galore.
I love it. It's perfect. And it's so funny because as you're describing that whole scenario in the school, I'm like, just visualizing it was stressful and uncomfortable. I can only imagine actually being there and being forced to just watch. And, that sounds, so difficult as a parent. I completely understand and can empathize. But I love that whole lesson, not only for the children, but also for the parents. That's a great lesson. And it is so profound to think about how much we let fear both hold us back and how much we end up holding back those around us because of our own fear. We're projecting that onto them. The kids probably weren't afraid at all, but that we end up projecting. And that can certainly be true for, we think about leadership with teams and coworkers and even peers. We end up holding ourselves back and holding back others as well. We end up falling short and diminishing. And it's a really powerful thing.
Yeah. And, it's funny that you say that because we don't do it intentionally.
No, right.
And there's no intent to harm at all. But yeah, as you said, like, it's just we're conditioned, based on our experiences and what we've seen. We want to save, we want to prevent you from making mistakes, but there's no harm intended. But actually what we're doing is saying, when we're projecting those thoughts and feelings, we're limiting someone else's learning. And when you think about that way, you're like, oh, if I go and save them, I'm actually limiting their growth and limiting that learning for them. And so to then, as you said, like, kind of stand back and allow that to unfold.
Yeah.
You might be proven wrong. You might there's so many assumptions that we make, and actually it's not true. And it's so great when my child, for example, proves me wrong. He can break those eggs, and make a cake on his own. And he can, take 2 cups now. Right. And it's just like, okay, I've got to challenge my own assumptions. That quote, everyone's a student and a teacher.
Right.
And that is a perfect example of where our kids or our team workers or our colleagues are teaching us that, hey, you got some limiting beliefs, you have some assumptions, but we did this, and it's awesome. I'm super glad when someone proves me wrong, because it's just great. You're challenging my thinking. Perhaps I need to let go. And that's a whole different topic. But I love this stuff.
Well, and one other thing that comes to mind just along this line of discussion is, I think too, it's when we act in that way, partially it's fear, that something will go wrong, or like you said, we want to protect, but also I think, and this isn't so much fear, but a little bit, we're afraid it'll just take too long, and it'll just be easier if we just do it, if we just do it. But then what we're not realizing is, not only, like you said, have we limited somebody's opportunity for growth, we've now actually on the long term that's going to take even longer because now we always have to do it. Whereas if we just took the time initially, empowered that person to learn, it would actually save us a bunch of time down the road because they'd be empowered. They would be empowered to go ahead and do that task moving forward instead of us always having to step in and save the situation.
Kelly, you're speaking my language here. And so you are speaking my language. And so in the coaching world, we call this trust the process.
Yeah.
And the process is hard to trust, especially with instant gratification and everything's fast or faster. And I'm going to bring it back to this Montessori story again. Because, you know, okay, so Levi was 2 at the time back at Montessori's. And okay, that they had to wash their grapes, okay? And they had to share it, and that the process was long, and it was 20 minutes of the child going and get the grapes. They had to go then wash it. They had to then pluck every single grape off the vine. They had to put it in a little thing. They weren't allowed to just eat like that whole because of the choking issue, so they had to cut it. Then they had to take it into the middle of the table and to share it with their friends. Okay. In theory, it sounds really wonderful and great, and that's phenomenal. In practice, it was like 20 minutes to half an hour. And the parents on the sidelines going, come on, man, like we're just going to wash these grapes for you. Let's get going. We've got things to do. Hustle, hustle, hustle. And it was, you know, and the teacher's just like, no, you need to trust the process. There's no instant gratification in this world, meaning we're teaching the child at this early stage that you need to follow the process. You will get the reward, but the reward is at every stage of following the process. And we want them to follow through and to trust the process and to share at the end and all that stuff. So there is no instant gratification. And I was like, love that. That was a whole new perspective where it's like, yes, it's painful to wait. Yes, it's quicker for us to do and save them. And I'm guilty because at times when I need to get out the door, I'm just like, pick it up, let's go. But again, back to my other point is every time we do something like that, we take away from their learning, their experience. So trusting the process, as you said, you know, what you're alluding to, like that is a gift in itself that we often shortcut.
Yeah. 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 And there is something really powerful about, you know, thinking about all this and especially thinking back to the earlier example with the glass cups, like with natural consequences. There is something really powerful about learning and growth. And I was thinking about the story from when my oldest child was maybe 2. I mean, he was old enough to walk, but still quite little. And in that house, we had a doggy door that led to the backyard. And we had had a bunch of snow and it was freezing cold outside, but he kept insisting on going through the doggy door. And if I put the thing down, he wanted to take it. And I kept bringing him back. And finally I thought, you know what? I'm just going to let him.
Right. Do it.
Yeah. I'm just going to let him go through there because in 5 seconds, he'll climb right back through. He's going to realize, oh, wait, there was a reason. You know, sure enough, I mean, I stood right there. I wasn't going to let him stay out there, of course, but I stood there and I let him go through. And within 3 seconds, if that, probably not even that long, he was right back inside. And then we didn't have to do it anymore. You know, he's like, okay. So yeah, I think it's, you know, so important for us as, I mean, we're doing a lot of parenting examples, but it certainly translates to leadership. It's so important to let people figure it out for themselves and to not be so afraid to let them figure it out. That's just so important. Yeah,
it is so important. And I know it's challenging in the corporate world because it's like faster.
Yeah.
But if we can allow our teams that space to process and to make those mistakes without judgment, that is so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I was reading, I think it was in the Culture Code, and he was talking about Pixar, and he said, is it Bob Iger? I'm trying to think of who was the head of Pixar at the time that he was writing the book, and that he could see that a project was kind of going off the rails, but he wasn't going to step in until he really knew he had to. He was going to let the team figure it out. And he kind of had this threshold of how long he was going to let something go before he knew he had to step in. And he said, sometimes I probably let it go a little longer than I should have, but it was letting them figure it out and not being so afraid of the failure, not being so afraid of time lost, or, you know, just letting them figure that out. And I think that's a really important lesson for us all.
Yeah. And for leaders, I do a lot of executive coaching. And one of the things I teach the leaders to do is they don't realize that when they speak first, it has a huge impact by default.
Yeah.
Their title, their CEO, their C-suite, by default, if they say something like, and it could just be an opinion or a suggestion, it gets taken as a directive.
Right.
And so it's really challenging for leaders, to actually hold back and say, no, I'm going to let everyone else speak. And as you back to that example, I'm going to let everyone else make, I don't want to say mistakes. It's not a mistake. It's more just a journey.
Right.
And it's actually really tough for a leader to just kind of hold back, because as soon as they speak, it's taken as a directive. Oh, we must go this way because they said. Right. And so it's challenging. So I deal with leaders all the time about it, where it's just like, it's almost less is more, less is more, right. Less is more. They can figure it out. Right. Step in at the very last minute if you need to, but better yet, ask the team the question.
Right.
Hey, where do you guys want to go with this? What are the derailers? What's up? What are the roadblockers? What are the impacts? All that good stuff. So anyway, I love that example, and I don't know if I diverted from your question.
No, I don't think you did. I think I took us off on a little tangent, so it's all good. So circling back though to thinking about how we can enthusiastically lean into fear. How can we get better at that and really work toward making fear a friend? What are some strategies to do that?
Yeah. So if anyone wants the checklist, I've got it, right? I'm happy to share it. But 4 steps. I'll talk about 4 steps. There are questions behind each step, right? But I'll just give you the highlights. Step 1, know and track your fear. And it sounds like, yeah, okay, I know it. But like when I say know and track it, I really mean journal it. I mean, some people have it in their hands. Some people feel it in their stomach when they get anxious. Some people get a blush and a red face. Some people stutter. So like while we can all relate to fear, to understand and know it for you, and when it comes up, what are your triggers? Are they specific words? Do these words come in emails? And so when I work with my clients, we literally track it. And so when the client comes to me and says, oh, bro, this is triggering me, we dissect the word, the why, when it's come up, has it come up before? It's a data point, right? And so if you track the stops, right? If you're a stock market person, you're tracking the stocks and it's no different. So track your fear like you would the stock market, right? Mm-hmm. And write it down. But that's all it is. It's a directive, a data point, not a directive.
Right.
And so step 1, know and track your fear. Step 2, start to ask your fear, and I say fear as a person because I always personify it, but ask your fear what it's protecting you from. Okay, that's when we're talking about embracing willingness to lean in and understand that fear is a good guy, good girl. Ask the question, what is it protecting you from? Often the answer is fear of embarrassment, fear of failure. And they're the common ones, right? Like the imposter syndrome. It's protecting me because I don't want to go out there and expose myself. And so once you say, hey, yeah, I get it. It's protecting me from embarrassment because I may not have all the answers. Once you get to that point, awesome, right? Awesome. Because then you get the next step. Step 3 is set the boundary. And I call it the invisible fence. There's a little fence. And when it's in this space, it's protecting you and it's great and it's doing all your job. And then there's this invisible boundary. And on the other side of fear, on this side, there's all the fun stuff that you want to do, like get on stage and speak, like going to a new country and getting on a plane, like going for that promotion, like getting that bigger team, like saying this to the CEO, but not sure how to say it. So understand what that boundary is, because if it's on this side and overprotecting, it's not allowing you to go to this side. So step 3 is look at the boundary. Where is it? Set it. Have the fear kind of peek over on this side and go, hey, do I really want that? Because if I do, then step 4 is to give fear a new role. And we call it co-collaborating with fear. And we're going to say, hey, fear, you know what? It's no different. We're going to promote you. We're going to promote you to be a cheerleader for me. We're going to promote you to be a prayer warrior. You get to design what role you want to promote fear into, but we're going to promote you and make you a friend, and we're going to ask you to cheer me over the fence and get me over the fence, because once I get over here, this is going to be a whole new world and a whole new lesson and a whole new experience, and this is what I want to be. So I need fear, step 4, to be in a new role, and we're going to help onboard you into this new role. And so that would be step 4, because once fear serves you and takes you over that fence, it's good. It's just amazing. It's empowering. You'll just see things that you've never experienced. It gives you confidence. It's a whole new world. It's a whole new world.
Yeah, that's genius. That's a really, really cool way to get the data points, really analyze it, come at it from this, analytical perspective, and then use it to your advantage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, the clients that I work with, they've reframed it, because it's amazing how they've reframed it. So, for example, we'd say, hey, what is fear telling you? What is the story that it's telling you right now? And it might be like, hey, I'm not good enough. I can't speak like that to the CEO. It's not my position to say. I don't have that role or that voice at the table. And so that's what fear is saying at this point on this side of the fence. And then, when we reposition it and reframe it, and we'll say things like, hey, well, what do you think fear could say to you? How can it be an advocate for you? What would it say to you if it was your prayer warrior? And then we'll reframe things like, I want, fear to encourage me. I want them to say my affirmations. I want them to tell me that I can do this. I want them to, fear to tell me this other narrative, another story. And it takes practice. I'm not going to lie. It's not going to happen overnight. But when you get to that zone of empowerment, it's amazing what that can do to say, hey, you know what? I did say that. I did get a seat at the table. I was too afraid to say it before, but when I took that small little step and I said it, and it wasn't perfect, but I said it, it just gives encouragement, empowerment, confidence, all that stuff. And the next time we go through it again, it's like, okay, I said a little bit more. Like I told the CEO a little bit more to that story. Not only did I position myself like this, I also told him, the extra stuff, right? And it's just bit by bit getting over that fence, just to prove to yourself you can do it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I love that. I love everything about that. And, as you said in the beginning, that fear is an emotion. And so when we can look at that objectively, we're able to, like you said, reframe our perspective, reframe the emotion, and really, make it our friend and use it to our advantage. And that's I really wasn't sure when we were talking about making fear our friend. I thought, okay, what does that mean? What is that going to look like when we talk about that? How when we unpack that, what does that mean? But I love when you talk about the strategy of personifying it. That allows that ability to say, okay, you're going to be my buddy now. You're going to walk through this journey, and here's how we're going to do it together. That's fantastic.
Yeah, go to personify it. That's powerful. Go to personify it. I'm not sure if I have a story, but do I have time for a story? Another story? I'm a storyteller.
Yeah.
So, let me personify it. So my fear, I call it Panda, right? So I personified it. His name's Panda. And basically, Panda is, so in our coach training course, we had to personify it and do the same exercise that I'm telling you now. And it was a game changer. And we had to personify it to a point where we had to either draw it, we had to bring something that represented fear and what it meant for you. And so mine was Panda. I'm Chinese. It means, obviously Panda Bear is Chinese. And we go back to the story about, well, why do I feel like I have to be perfect at everything, right? What is it stopping me from doing? And I come to realize that growing up, being Chinese, I had the typical parents. B+ is never good enough. It had to be A++++++. Right. So all of that, right? And when I personified it, I just end up calling Panda my Panda, right? So Panda represents fear for me, not being good enough, having to strive for perfectionism. And so, now, like during coach training, we then literally did a lot of work. I know I had to unpack this really quickly in the 4 steps, but really it was saying, hey, Panda, what can you do for me now? Now I get to be a parent. Now I get to choose your new role. I get to give you a new job description. I'm in HR. I think you might know that, but like so in my HR mind, I'm like, okay, I've got to give you, Panda Bear, a new job description. I need to onboard you. I need to give you a training program, and you're going to sit back. And so, yeah, but personifying it in a character, in a name, in a singer, in whatever resonates with you, makes sense. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent here because my keynote, I bring out this little panda bear to say personifying it is so important, and it's got to be relatable to you, and you need to create this new role, whatever that means. And so I don't have Panda right in front of me, but basically he sits there now, and he sometimes slips back into the role as protector. And then when I look at him, I'm like, I know what you're doing. Hey, Panda Bear, like if he pops, even if a thought comes up as, oh boy, like I'm getting nervous here, I'm not really good enough for this. I look at him, I'm like, hey, and getting curious. Hey, like, you know what? I see you there. I got this. Like my thing to myself is I've got this. And it might just be acknowledgement that, hey, you popped in my thought. You're cool. I got you. You know what? I don't need you right now. I'm going to move on. And when I do need you, I'm going to ask you to come back. But for right now, I'm good. See you later. So I don't know how I got to that story again. But I think I started talking about Panda. I started talking about Levi. And I used Panda because my keynote, Panda is a panic alarm. And so when you pull out the panic alarm, the reason why I brought it to my coach training was because that's what it makes me feel. Pull the panic alarm inside, I'm like, oh, panic. But it relates to Levi because we took him overseas to China. And the whole backstory to it, but basically I unintentionally, as a parent, made Levi fearful of the plane ride, of what could happen in the new country, because I was saying, hey, Levi, you've got to stick with mum and dad. You don't know where you're going, like all this stuff. There's going to be a lot of people around. And so he got fearful. And so I ended up handing my little panda bear to him and saying, hey, I know you're scared, but this guy's going to protect you, right? Like he's now going to be a protector. If you're scared, you pull the panic button, but more importantly, he's going to be your friend. He's going to be the tour guide. He's going to be with you at all times, and he's going to show you these cool things like food and culture. And so that's another example of when I go really deep. I know I'm fast tracking here, but basically how my fear unintentionally passed into my child as a parent, because I was helicopter parenting over him.
Right.
So then he owned the fear for me to say, hey, you know what? Thank goodness my coach training. I was like, okay, I know what I've done. I know I've kept you small because I made you fearful, but you know what? I'm going to pass on what I now know over to you, and you are going to use Panda for good, right, to help you get over there. And so I don't know where this story is going, but I just wanted to say, look, we unintentionally do things as a leader, as a parent, and by helicoptering, is it the word? We prevent them from moving forward. And so, Kelly, I'm sorry to just...
No, please do not apologize, because this has been great. And I love when you were saying about, because you have an HR background, you're giving the job description and the job duty. And, I think that that's a great way for us all to think about, because as you're describing this, clearly it's an individual experience. And so as we're identifying our own individual personification, so, somebody who's into music, it could be a musician. And okay, we're going to write a song, we have a new song. If it's somebody who's into drama, it's a new script. If you're an educator, it's a new lesson plan, whatever resonates with you as a person, in a way for you to say, okay, this is my personification of fear. This is something that relates to me. I love the idea of having a visual, if you can get some type of stuffed animal or character or something that you can literally visualize that personification. and have that conversation and rewrite that narrative in a way that is most meaningful and powerful. I think that's awesome. Yeah,
That was a great recap. And you mentioned that music is
yeah,
powerful.
yeah,
And so if there are composers in the audience, that is so powerful. As you said, rewrite music. I used to play piano, and so that alone, that could be your turning point for you. That could be that boundary when you hear that song or you hear this melody in this space and you want to pop it over the fence. You can change the music and that narrative through music. Love that.
yeah, yeah. That's all. I wasn't even thinking. That's so cool. I wasn't even thinking specifically like, okay, this is your trigger song in a good way. I didn't even think specifically that. So I love that you added that element there and like the music piece and the song. That's because music is so emotional and so powerful. So yeah, I didn't even think of it in that specific term. I love that you added that. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So my little pep up music, if we're doing confessions, if we're just putting it out there, fight song. I love fight song.
Yeah, that's a good one. That is a good one. Yeah. I like Confident by Demi Lovato. That's a good one. Yeah, I like that song. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's sometimes a technique. People are like, hey, when I'm about to do something big, music could be my go-to. So yeah, I love fights. Like that's my little pep song.
Yeah, that's a good song. Yeah, that's on my running playlist for sure. So, shifting gears a little bit because I know I do want to have the opportunity to talk about this. I know you've been doing some work on Clubhouse, and I think that this fits in because so many of us are like, okay, so this seems like a cool new platform. I kind of like to dip my toe in, but people are afraid. This is, I think, a real life example and lesson of we're afraid because it's something new. We don't want to look like fools, So, talk again, just, we can kind of tie it in the concept of fear, but I also just want to give you the opportunity to share kind of any lessons with Clubhouse or wisdom or things that can help us, as we see that on the other side, that can help us kind of reframe our narrative and be willing to dive into that new platform.
I love Clubhouse. So I'm on this side of Clubhouse. I'm on this side of the fence. Come on over, right? Like Clubhouse is fun. And I just want to give reassurance to everyone. Yes, it's new. It is in beta testing. And what that means is that whoever is on the platform, we are all learning together. So people are in there, they look like they're all polished, and for certain, some are more polished than others. But if you look at how long it's been around, I don't know, 6 months, right? Which is not long.
No.
It's actually very short. It's gone from like 200,000 to now 600,000 to now 1 million to 4 million. And even though they sound like big numbers, it's still in the early adoption stage. It's still in beta testing. And so now is the time to get in and get messy because everyone is learning. And so I love it. I love it because it's audio only. And so if you don't like going on screen and all that, that's perfectly fine. I love it because it level sets everyone as well. You have one little photo and the rest is voice. You get to choose. If you want to join in conversation, great, do it. If you don't want to, no worries. And so I just encourage everyone to get in. It's fun. There's conversations about everything. There's conversations about fear, about imposter syndromes. There are conversations just about parenting. There's conversations just about a leader. There is all conversations about anything. And everyone's pretty amazing on there. There's keynote speakers, there's psychologists on there, there's therapists. And so all the insights and words of wisdom, they're just having conversation. And so there's no pressure. So come on over. It's so great.
Yeah, I as we were chatting before, I had been in there for a little while, a few months now, and started out, I think, as most people start out on Clubhouse, by just kind of going into the rooms and stalking and listening and just trying to figure it all out. And I mean, it's been a fun experience the few times that I have actually hosted a room and or gone up on stage. It has been a fun experience. And yeah, I mean, sure, there is a little bit of like, oh boy, if somebody asks you a question, you have no idea what they're going to ask, but that's the fun part too, and like you said, everybody's kind of figuring it out together. So I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I don't know if everyone learns this way, but I love like just clicking buttons and like, what does this button do? And what does this button do? And oh, it kicked me out. Oh, okay, no worries. Like that. That's why I learned. I just think,
right,
get in, get messy, have fun with it. If you want to do it with a co-modder room, there are tons of collaborators out there. There is a whole community that is so supportive. And so there is no place or room for bullying, harassment, any of that stuff. The developers have done a really nice job of making features like trolling unacceptable, meaning like you can exit people out if they're being inappropriate. And so they're really creating a safe space, and the moderators of all the rooms that I've been in have been doing a really good job of including people. You have people with disabilities on there, and so they've been super inclusive and really mindful to make sure that everyone has a voice. So I really love it. It's a safe, we overuse the word, but it is a safe space, and you can pretty much say your opinions without judgment.
Right.
And it's no different to any other platform, right? Like you can find your circle. If that's for you, great, go there. If your circle is, in face-to-face, that's fine too. You don't have to always use it. I just love it.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah, I'll definitely be on there more. I'm sure. Yeah. So you're hosting and doing some regular coaching on there, correct?
Correct. So I'm a certified coach. We do live coaching on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And basically that means if you come into the room, we've got certified coaches that are on stage, and we call it fishbowl coaching, or we call it round robin coaching. But essentially, if you want to come on stage, ask a question, kind of think through the challenges, we have people that are ready just to kind of walk through the journey with you. And so we do that Wednesdays and Saturdays. We have a coaches club on there, and we have a Facebook group on there. And then we constantly have moderators and hosts. And Kelly, we would love to have you on there. Come on in.
Thank you. I need to come on there. I know.
Yes, we would love to have this type of conversation on there as well. And then I know we're going to go to audience comments soon, but it's no different. Like what we're doing right now is exactly what's happening in Clubhouse.
Right.
It's no different except without the video, right? So we do that there. And there's rooms about everything you can think of. So you just join one that you want to be involved in.
Yeah. Are there, so in thinking about, just the Clubhouse piece, I know you're getting ready to launch a course. Are there just big things for people outside of what you've already shared, to just kind of key strategies that you would put out there for people?
Yep, 4 things. I love my 4 steps, right? 4 things. Get clear. Get clear on what you're using Clubhouse for. No different to any other social media platform. What are you hoping to achieve from it? What's your measure of success? And what's your purpose on there? So get clear. 2, get connected. Again, no different to any other social platform. So that the marketing principles and the social media principles are the same. It's just a different platform. So get connected. Get connected to the people that are going to serve you and help you and empower you. And that's clubs and people. And then the 3rd piece is get collaborating. So collaboration is key, I believe, in empowering others, male, females, and I think there's just power in the collective. Right. And so get collaborating with people that serve your cause. And that way you can increase the influence, impact, and income. And then the last piece is get converting. And I know converting sounds very salesy, so let me change it. Get a strong call to action. So there's a lot of businesses on there who are, yes, generating leads for their business, and that's great. People are on there for branding. People are on there just for community. People are on there because there are charities on there who are willing to give and serve for example, is in a room to single mothers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, when I say get converting, what I mean is get a strong call to action. And if the cause is a charitable cause, then that's also a great platform to say, hey, share your story. How can we serve you and how can we help you?
Right.
So get clear, connected, collaborating, and then get a strong call to action. But these principles kind of apply to all platforms.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, they're my four things.
That's great. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And you're right. I mean, it's another social platform, so it makes sense that a lot of the same things would apply, but it is still different and nuanced. And so,
Yeah.
and I think that collaboration piece, I mean, from the little bit I've been able to see, I think that is one thing that is even more important, I think, on this platform versus some of the others. I mean, collaboration is always great and, and beneficial, but I can see that would be even more so with this platform versus some of the others.
Yeah, and the reason for that collaboration piece is because it's interactive.
Right.
It is interactive, and you get different perspectives from all around the world. And so when you start building ideas on top of each other, it is powerful in terms of the mastermind insights that happen and the breakthroughs that happen. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So we're actually getting close to time here. We have a couple more minutes. We haven't had any questions pop up, so I will ask you as we start to kind of go to our wrap-up mode here. Are there other kind of key don'ts and do's that you like to share with people? And this can be, for our topic of embracing fear, and or it can be, as we shifted to kind of the Clubhouse topic, but just in general, any key don'ts and do's that you like to share with people?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Kelly. So I will say get coached, get connected. And so whether it's me or another one or you, Kelly, it doesn't really matter, but
Right.
Get connected and coached. And, your coach doesn't have to be, this person that's 20 steps ahead and all that stuff. Your coach could simply be that person that is one step in front of you.
Right.
So just get support, community, get coached, whatever that looks like for you. Do that. The other piece I will say the do piece is reflect in and downwards. And I think a big torchlight, because I did sweep, I will say I did sweep it on the carpet, my emotions, for a long time. And my husband calls me the Coke bottle, when you shake the Coke bottle and I hold all my emotions in. And then one day when you flip the bottle cap off, it just, so I did that, right?
Yeah.
And so I did some deep work with your coach training, and you shine a torchlight deep in, reflect in, and get rid of the cobwebs and just kind of deal and sit with it. That is so powerful. And that, do that. And I wish that is key. I wish I knew that in my 20s.
Right. Yeah.
So then opposite to that would be don't sweep it under the rug, right?
Yeah.
So I'll probably leave it there, and I think that would be about it. What about you? What are your do's and don'ts?
Oh, she's turning the tables on me. Yeah, I think especially along in this topic, don't wait until you think you'll be completely ready to take action, because you'll never be completely ready. So, being willing to go ahead and start before you're ready. Yes, get a good foundation, do your homework, but don't keep putting off that date of when you're going to go ahead and take that leap, because that will just constantly be this moving and evolving benchmark and timeline. And at some point you just have to start before you're ready, and you just have to dive in. And as you talked about earlier, just learn as you go, just figure it out, as you go, kind of build the plane as you're flying, so to speak. That would be one of my key. That's kind of a wrapped up a don't and a do it at the same time. And I would absolutely agree with the do. Ask for help, whatever that looks like, a coach, a mentor, somebody, but don't feel like you have to figure it all out on your own, because you don't know what you don't know, and somebody else has already figure that out, and they can share those lessons learned with you and save you a lot of heartache. I mean, yes, you still need to learn for yourself, and you still need to have that, but don't be afraid to ask for advice and feedback,
Right.
and get that help, because then you can still learn along the way, but maybe, have the wisdom of somebody else to help guide you as you make those decisions and take that leap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a fantastic point. Yeah, so that's why I follow you, Kelly. So wherever you go, I go. So for those reasons.
We have good synergy. We yes, yeah.
Words of wisdom.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love
So
it.
let me ask, I talked a little bit, well, I'm sorry, I don't know if you had any questions.
No, we did not have anything in the chat, so we're good.
Okay, I was going to ask you, turning the tables here, but what techniques have you seen with your clients about managing fear?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, a lot of it for me comes down to communication and feedback, workplace culture. And so when I'm working with them on fear, it's generally within those contexts. And one specific example, a lot of times leaders are afraid to give feedback, particularly critical feedback, because they're not sure how that person's going to respond, or they're, just any kind of difficult conversation. We build up that fear, and we're so afraid to have it because we don't know how that other person's going to respond. And so, I've worked with leaders on saying, even if your absolute worst case scenario were to happen, because they would keep putting off the conversation, keep putting off the conversation, and say, okay, even if your worst case scenario were to happen, which it's not likely to, but if it did, if it were to happen, you will still feel so much better for having had the conversation, because the weight of all of those negative potential outcomes that you keep replaying in your mind, all of those potential negative what ifs, all of that, and the tension you're feeling because you need to have this conversation with this person, and you're feeling that tension and all of this, that will all be gone once you at least have the conversation. And so even if that they get mad, they storm out of the room, they quit, whatever, you can deal with that then. But until you have that conversation, it's just going to keep building up. And so that's, really helping talk through and empower them to release that outcome, release the outcome of the conversation. All you can do is control how you approach the conversation and do it in the best manner. And then you just got to see where the chips fall. You can't control how other people are going to respond. And often it's not nearly as bad as what we build it up to be anyway. So that's one of the big ones, I think, in terms of where I would see fear emerge and some of the issues that we work through. So it's not even so much a technique as it is just have the dang conversation already.
But you're right. It's the mental load, that weight, like it's the weight of that. So I totally relate.
Yeah.
Words of wisdom. Kelly speaks again.
Oh boy. Well, and then the only other thing I'll say, because this is not, my people hear me talk all the time, but the other thing I'll say is, though, then also people are afraid to receive feedback, right? Like we could talk for a while about, and some of that I know you already know, like why that is we fear feedback. And one of the things I tell people is, when you're starting to receive that feedback, just listen. Resist that urge to respond immediately and just listen. Receive the feedback, thank them for the feedback, and then say you'd like some time to process. And then you can step away, deal with all the feelings that you're feeling,
Right.
process it, and then circle back and have that conversation. But really resisting that urge to respond with justifications, explanations, all those things.
Right.
That is more of a technique that we work through. But yeah, it's interesting and intriguing to think about all the ways that fear shows up in our lives. So many layers, so many opportunities.
So many layers. Yeah.
Practice all the things you shared today, which was really, seriously phenomenal. I hope people watch it over and over again, because I think they'll take something new away each time. Really, really good information and wisdom. So thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Anytime. Thank you for having me again. I loved it.
So I'll be sure to include links at the bottom of the video description, but I also like to give my guests the opportunity to share where's the best place for people to find you and connect with you.
Yeah, I mean, several places. If you're on LinkedIn, just my name, Google my name, add me, DM me, direct message me. If you want to do the website, do that too. If that's easier, www.theleadersstory.com. I'm in Clubhouse these days all the time, all the time, all the time. And so under the search button, you just put @ your coach Row.
Okay.
And so if you follow me there and put the alarm bell every time I speak and open a room, you can find me there. But I'm on Facebook @ your coach Row. Just any platform. It's usually under my name, the Leader Story, or @ your coach Row.
Great.
So yeah, super easy.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again. This was wonderful. And yeah, and I appreciate it again. I look forward to connecting more on Clubhouse. Yeah.
Yes, we're going to do this. We're going to have you as a guest.
Yeah.
We're going to do the same topic over there.
I love it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And take care, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Okay, bye.